Republican State Representative Matt Shaheen of Prosper and House Elections Committee Chairman Matt Shaheen again. Thank you so much. We appreciate it and welcome back to Eye on Politics.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
So let's first start off with DART. Alarm bells have been sounding by DART, Dallas Area Rapid Transit, because your House bill has passed the House Transportation Committee. So what does this bill say and why did you file it?
Yeah, look, DART has been recalcitrant for probably close to a decade. You have 6 cities that have been overpaying into DART. Look at the city of Plano paying over $100 million every year into DART and getting maybe $45 million worth of services. And so what these 6 different cities, I'm talking about Carrollton, Farmers Branch, Highland Park, they've been asking DART to sit down and come up with a new financial arrangement so they're not overpaying. DART has refused to do that. So we've been forced into a situation where we're going to attempt to take care of this legislatively. So what the piece of legislation, it's called the DART Reform Act. What it does is it allows these cities that are overpaying to receive 25% back in the payments that they make into DART, and then they can take those dollars and apply them to local mobility transportation projects.
And so this was something where the city of Plano, which is in your district, did they come to you and say, look, you need to file a bill because our efforts to reform DART and to get more that we've paid into the system have failed? Is that what
Yeah,
happened?
that Plano came to me. Some of the other cities that I mentioned, I've had discussions with. And look, if DART would just sit down and treat these cities like customers, I wouldn't be put into a situation where I would even have to file the legislation. But DART is refusing to work with their member cities. They're not holding up their end of the spirit of the arrangement, their relationship. And so, look, the piece of legislation it passed out of the House Committee on Transportation. We're expecting it to get a hearing in the Senate this week as well. So that piece of legislation is moving. DART needs to get its folks together, sit down with these 6 cities, and come up with an arrangement. Otherwise, that piece of legislation will get to the governor's desk.
And I mean, I was going to ask you, do you think that the full House is going to pass this? And what about the Senate?
Yeah, when I have the opportunity to lay out the facts, again, the overpayments, I mean, literally, you have a city that's getting 50 cents on the dollar. I have a high level of confidence that it will pass. I've got some really strong joint authors, Morgan Meyer, State Representative, Chair of Ways and Means, that represent Highland Park as a joint author. And so, yes, and then, once that bill passed out of the Transportation Committee, I went immediately over to the Senate and started talking to the senators and saying, hey, DART Reform Act is moving. Start moving it in the Senate. And like I said, they'll probably have a hearing in the Senate this week.
And let me ask you, because these cities have representatives on the board, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely, they do. So, for example, if you take a look at Plano, I think DART is I think it's a 13-member board, but Plano has literally like 1.5 representatives or 1.5 votes. So they go to the meetings, they participate. But what I'm talking about, what Plano, Highland Park, Farmers Branch is talking about, is sitting down in good faith and have a discussion about how do you redo the financing formulas because they just don't work today.
But you're saying that DART has refused, even though members of these cities are board members?
That's exactly right. So, you
I mean,
know,
have those board members pushed for this?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Look, what's happened is like I'm sharing with you like the overpayments that are happening with DART. The cities were just going to DART and say, "Hey, can you confirm it looks like we're overpaying compared to our services? Can you provide us a report?" DART refused to do that. I'm talking about 6 years ago. I was forced to file legislation to force DART just to provide the information as far as comparing what these cities are paying in, what was the dollar amount that they were receiving in services. DART wouldn't even provide that type of report. Finally, we applied enough pressure. We went to the Regional Transportation Committee that represents the transportation needs of North Texas, and they finally produced a report. They hired Ernst & Young, paid Ernst & Young over $1 million to produce this report, which is another frustrating item. I don't understand why you have to hire somebody and pay them $1 million to go into your financial systems and figure out how much you're spending per city. But nevertheless, yeah, DART has been recalcitrant and fighting us the entire time. I'm talking about from sitting down and doing good faith negotiations, just a simple transparency. They fought us all the way.
So a committee substitute passed, which means there was a change to the bill. So I know you discussed a little bit about this, but talk about really, so explain to people how DART is funded in these member cities, and what was the change in the bill?
Yeah, so the way DART's funded today is if you're a DART city member, then you have 1 cent of your sales tax that you're collecting that's going into DART. And there's a flaw in that equation. So you literally could have a decrease in ridership, which is happening today. Yet if your sales tax revenues, if the economy is growing in your city, DART's actually getting more money. And that's actually what's been happening over the past 10 years, where DART's revenues have increased 54%, where the ridership is pretty much flat. So they had this P&L that shows exponential growth in revenue, but their ridership is pretty much flat. And so what the original bill did is it took that penny, reduced it down to 75 cents, or 0.7. It reduced it down to 75% of that penny. So instead of a penny, it was 0.75 of a penny. And we brought that back. We had a discussion and we put that back to 1 cent. So all the bill is doing now is just requiring 25% of the payment that these cities are making into DART. They get 25% of it back. And it's important to understand, Jack, the Planos, the Highland Parks, they're still going to be overpaying. They're just not going to be overpaying as much, and they'll get some money back. And again, they can widen roads, repair potholes, just any kind of transportation mobility project in their city.
Now, DART put out a news release and it said that this bill, quote, kills DART, threatens to collapse North Texas public transit, dismantle the region's public transportation system, eliminate 5,800 jobs, have more than 100,000 riders immediately lose access to transit, and cripple economic growth in North Texas. What's your
Yeah,
reaction?
they have a great, I think it's a couple dozen marketing team that does that every session when we're working on legislation. Again, two things. One, DART should just sit down and work with these cities and come up with some type of arrangement. Just sit down and negotiate in good faith. And two, I go back to the revenues that have been increasing for DART. Again, over 50% over the last 10 years without correlating increase in ridership. So quite frankly, if all those things were true, then we have a serious problem about the operational management of DART. So anyhow, those are incredible exaggerations. That's not the case. So DART has an option. They have a couple weeks. They can sit down and have good faith negotiations with these cities, or we're going to take care of it legislatively. DART's in the driver's seat. They control their destiny. They have two options. They need to pick one.
And let me ask you, because FIFA, the 2026 World Cup, is just around the corner,
Yeah,
and North Texas, as you know, is playing a really big role in hosting many of these matches.
yeah.
And so I'm wondering what is going to be the impact if this bill passes? What would the impact be on the region as, all these people are coming in?
Oh, look, DART has the capacity. Every time I drive by a DART bus, it's practically empty. There's plenty of capacity in their system to handle that type of event. But look, we've had the Super Bowl here. We've had the FCS bowl game up in Frisco. You have a bunch of just incredible events up in the city of Frisco. And it's been the transportation needs for the region have been supported, and they'll continue to be supported. So that won't be an issue at all. I know there's a significant amount of planning going on for that event. We're excited about that event, and the mobility for the region will be perfectly fine during that time.
And the last question on this topic, is this a case where the city of Dallas and its board members are pushing back against, sitting down and giving these other cities a break?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it again, this is why the financing model needs to change. So I've been talking about cities overpaying. You have Dallas that's underpaying to the tune of, I think it's like $250 million. So you have all these different cities in the suburbs that are subsidizing Dallas. And this financial system is like 30 or 40 years old, and this model probably made sense back then, but all the suburbs has grown substantially and outpace the growth of the city of Dallas. So again, the financing model really doesn't make sense. It probably needs to be based more on the actual services that are provided in each of these cities and not that sales tax mechanism. That sales tax mechanism probably made sense 30 or 40 years ago. It just doesn't make sense now with all the growth. I mean, Collin County was a couple 100,000, probably less than 100,000 when this DART was first formed. Now it's over 1 million. So just the dynamics of the whole of all the 13 cities that make up DART are just significantly different than when it was first put together.
And just on the point of you're saying that Dallas underpays by 250 million. That's
Mhm.
a year, or is that?
That's a year. So they pay into DART 250 million less than what they receive in services.
And about the other cities, so you're saying it's the 12 other cities are overpaying, and how much are they overpaying as a group every?
So of the 13, there's 6 that are overpaying. I don't know what the total amount is for those. I mean, you have again Plano over 100 million, getting about 45 million in return. But you have Farmers Branch, Carrollton, Highland Park, University Park that are all overpaying. Not to the extent Plano is. Plano is incredibly egregious. But you have 6 of the 13 cities overpaying compared to the services that they're receiving.
So let's talk about the Texas lottery
Yeah,
because there's a lot of talk that it could be sunsetted, which means it could be abolished. And you favor that, right?
I absolutely do. Yeah, look, the state really shouldn't be in the business of driving what I call it addiction to gambling. It's the lottery was meant to be this thing where you go to the grocery store, you buy a lottery ticket, you go home and see what happens. And now it's just it's evolved into this really expansion as far as you can buy lottery tickets online. We had these courier services that were literally buying lottery tickets in bulk. We had one instance where there was a lottery, online lottery entity overseas, so not even here in the United States, that purchased $25 million worth of the different scenarios and combinations of the lottery and won an $83 million jackpot. So now you have Texans that are going in, buying a handful of lottery tickets, not realizing that their opportunity to win the big jackpot is actually declining because of this online mechanism. So, and anyhow, the other thing that concerns me about the lottery in general is if you look at the individuals, the income levels of the people that are buying lottery tickets, there's a significant portion that are low income, and quite frankly, I think they'd be better off, using their money for diapers and foods and formula and the like, and not lottery tickets. And really, the state of Texas shouldn't be pushing something like that.
But how can you legislate that? I mean, you're basically legislating to people they can't buy a lottery ticket, right?
Yeah, I mean the lottery is a creation of the state of Texas. It was when Ann Richards was governor. Like a lot of the gambling, when there's a debate about gambling or expanding gambling, there's these big promises that it's going to fund everything, and it was supposed to pay for education, and it pays a very, very small percentage. In our state budget, we fund just K through 12 about $90 billion. Less than 3 billion of that comes to the lottery, and we're flush with huge surpluses because our economy is doing so well in the state of Texas. We could easily replace that. But gambling in general, it never makes its promises. So, for example, horse racing. We have horse racing parks in the state of Texas. What most citizens don't realize is we actually subsidize the horse racing industry in the state of Texas with tax dollars as well. So anyhow, the lottery is one of those things that there were promises made. It was back when Governor Ann Richards was governor, and it's fallen short as it normally does.
And so, how far do you think this is going to go? Do you see a scenario in which, because it's not funded for the next 2 year budget as of right now,
That's right.
and so where do you see this going? Do you really see the Texas legislature and the governor signing off on killing the Texas lottery?
There's a scenario where that does happen. There is a sunset bill. So just just a little bit of background, right? Every agency, every entity in the state of Texas goes through this sunset process, usually every 12 years. And literally, we look to see, does that agency still make sense? So right now, we're going through this process. Does the Lottery Commission still make sense? And quite frankly, it's very corrupt right now, just because of these couriers and the overseas purchasing of lottery tickets. So they're really in a bad position right now that the commission in and of itself, so that's the regulatory body of the lottery, allowed all this to happen. We've had changes in executive directors. So anyhow, there's a big question right now if the lottery should exist. And so there's a scenario where we just let it die. If the sunset bill for the lottery is not passed and doesn't become law, the lottery goes away. So I have filed legislation to get rid of the lottery. That's one scenario. Or there's a scenario where it doesn't make it out of sunset. The third scenario is obviously there's some type of arrangement made, some type of negotiation, and we do pass the lottery sunset bill.
And for that to happen, it would require what? Huge reforms?
Well, it's a piece of legislation. It's a bill that's filed. It's out there, and it would just have to pass both of the chambers and be signed to the governor, signed by the governor. I think what you would probably see in that piece of legislation is the lottery wouldn't get another 12 years before they get another review. They would probably be under review again in another 2 years. But
Wow.
again, we have so much, we're so flush with cash. We're working on significant property tax relief for the citizens of Texas. Because of the hardworking Texans, the state of Texas has a surplus. We're working to give as much of that back to the Texans that generated that income. But it'd be very easy for us to replace the funding that comes from DART that goes, or from the lottery that goes into education. We have the funds to do that.
Okay, so you just brought up a couple of topics that I want to talk about, and that is the property tax relief deal just struck between House and Senate Republicans,
Yeah,
in which the House Republicans would approve the Senate bill to increase the homestead exemption. The
correct.
Senate would pass the House Republican bill to increase the exemption on the business property taxes.
That's
Are you
right.
for this deal and why?
Absolutely. It's great relief both for our, moms and dads, our families out there and their home ownership, their homestead exemption would increase. But at the same time, we do need to be, and by the way, the homestead exemption is higher if you're 65 or older. And then look, the engine of the Texas economy is our business community, our small businesses, our large businesses. They would benefit as well from the property tax relief bill as well. So, hats off to my friend, Representative Morgan Meyer, who's been driving the negotiations from the House perspective. And yeah, it's really exciting. This is actually the third time in the past couple of years that we've been able to provide significant property tax relief. And the other thing that I'll mention as well, Chairman Morgan Meyer, that he's working on is trying to place some limits on the debt that our local governments are issuing. So we have some small cities, some small ISDs that have actually a significant amount of debt that's worrisome. So if we can put the parameters around that to ensure that their debt load is truly necessary, we could actually see some relief on the property tax and on the local side as well.
And then let's talk about public school funding.
Yeah.
School choice is now the law, the education savings accounts that the
Yeah.
governor signed
Yeah.
last weekend. And so now the focus is on public school funding. And there are differences between the House and the Senate bills. And I would imagine that's going to be negotiated between both chambers. Do you see that House and Senate Republicans are going to come together on this? And is that something you could back?
Sure. I mean, those discussions have been ongoing. Some of them started actually even before session started in January. But yeah, Chairman Buckley, who heads public education in the House, he's been focused on a multitude of education issues. You mentioned school choice, and what a great opportunity that's going to be for, tens of thousands of students across the state of Texas. It's literally going to change the trajectory of their life. So I'm incredibly excited and a big supporter of that, obviously. But yes, the House is looking at an increase of public education funding to the tune of over $8 billion. Some of that we're designating for teacher pay raises. Our teachers are so incredibly awesome. They're probably some of the most important people in our state. They're producing our next workforce and obviously creating super opportunities for our students and future Texans. But I have a high level of confidence that we will come to agreement. There is going to be a significant increase in public education, which, by the way, we typically do. Again, I referenced the state budget earlier. We literally have over $90 billion just for K through 12. And then our university system, the funding's on top of that. So got a great future. We got great schools, and they're going to continue to be great schools, and we're going to even have greater opportunities for our students. I'm incredibly excited about the work that we're doing there.
And my last question to you is, as I mentioned at the top, you're the chair of the House Elections Committee, and one of the bills moving through there is the proof of citizenship bill. So, do you think that's going to pass the legislature, and what exactly does that even entail?
Yeah, I have a high level of confidence it's going to pass. We're doing great things around election integrity to ensure our elections are fair, are easy to come out and vote, but they're also secure. We're doing a significant amount of work just to strengthen our audits, ballot secrecy. We had some issues with ballot secrecy in the last election, if you'll recall. So we're addressing that as well. And yes, with respect to citizenship, so the way the process works today is actually the Department of Public Safety, as Texans go and get their driver's license, because of the Real ID Act, and they actually have this process where, as somebody's driver's license application is going through its process, they're actually hitting databases, publicly available databases, to actually check to see if the individual is a citizen of the United States. And if we run into a situation where that person is registering to vote and we can't confirm that they're a U.S. citizen, then what this piece of legislation does is it provides different identifications that we're going to ask that individual provide. So it could be a birth certificate, it could be a U.S. passport. It's just another step that we're going to take to ensure that we have secure elections in the state of Texas.
State Representative Matt Shaheen, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
You bet. Thanks for having me, Jack.